The funding for this video is provided by the amazing members of my Patreon. Also contributions from viewers like you. Thank you. Yeah, I started from PBS Kids. What you gonna do? Fight me? Anyway, roll the video. Hi, just a brief disclaimer before we get started. The subject matter is going to be a bit heavier than a lot of the last things I've been talking about. So viewer discretion is advised. And then also all the women that I specifically picked out for this video, I'm mainly talking about ones that are viewed as like strong, meaning like they could kick somebody's ass if they wanted to. I feel like picking these examples would strengthen my argument, opposed to picking women who are viewed as like frail and weak and whatever. Okay? Thank you for understanding. Let's get into it. I went ahead and made sure I got all my tears out before I got on camera because no, y'all be like your memes out of people when they cry on the internet. Not me. To much of many people's surprise, I love me some panty and stocking. I love panty and stocking mainly because I love its two main characters, panty and stocking. No one gives a fuck about garter belt. As I kind of looked at these two characters a little too seriously, but who cares? Because as you have these two people that don't really have anyone other than each other, and sometimes we don't even really see that from one another. As both sisters have ditched each other at one point in the series, with Panty going to sleep around with men and Stocking wanted to run away with the man that treated her like shit. And then at one point, Stocking did go back home without her sister. Panty got kicked out of where she was living because it's obvious that man didn't care about her unless she was doing something for him. And since she had lost her powers at the time, she had nowhere to go and ended up living with her grandma. So many people in Panty and Stocking's life failed them. So many people in Panty and Stocking's life have failed them, and Panty and Stocking have nothing, and that's what makes them unhinged. They stopped caring about what people had to say about them. They had no problem with stripping naked in front of a whole bunch of men for the sake of money. They don't watch what they have to say in front of people. They don't really care much about anyone other than themselves. They don't fight ghosts simply because they want to and want to help other people. They're doing it because they're getting something out of it. Panty and Stocking having nothing has led to them having very reckless behavior. Today's video is sponsored by The Coldest Water. The Coldest Water is a company that sells insulated water bottles that fit your needs, and that need being keeping your drink cold all day long. Anybody that knows me knows that I cannot stand warm drinks, and with my Coldest Water bottle, I don't have to deal with that. They have a variety of different sizes and colors. As I love mint green, greens and blues are my favorite colors. I know many of you guys don't like this color. You want it in black and you can get it in pink. They have other colors. You want something bigger than this? They have that. You want something smaller than this? They have that too. I love The Coldest Water. I've been working with them since 2020, and I have always been pretty much satisfied with the results that this company has given me. Use my code HOOK for 10% off your order. Thank you guys so much at The Coldest Water for sponsoring today's video. Now let's hop back into it. Hey y'all, it's Harriyanna and I'm back with another video. Hi, hello, how are you doing? My name is Harriyanna and welcome to and welcome back to The Pirate Ship, also known as Harry Hook's Pirate Ship. I am the captain, you are now my first mate, and I got no first mate because you want to know why? Bring your ear closer to the speaker so you can hear me clearly. Nobody's worthy of being the first mate, but hi, hello, how are you guys doing? My name is Harriyanna and I like to make content based off nostalgia and family and children's entertainment and all the issues that I find within those spaces. Now, I have been doing a lot of research about the darkness that applies when it comes to feminism. When it comes to feminism, you kind of have to somewhat understand why plenty of women do the terrible things they do from the result of men and other people within their lives letting them down. And as of lately, I have been watching this channel called Anti-Heroines. Really do enjoy this channel right here. I do recommend it. And they are a bit more well educated on this subject, but this is something that they had posted in their comment section, and I just would like to share it with you guys, a bit of a disclaimer before I go any further. A Woman Unhinged started as a little series where I discuss movies and shows with female leads that don't behave in traditional feminine way. Consume disturbed, complex, weird, unsettling, complicated anti-heroines, basically female villains and antagonists. It's interesting to see how these characters are written, what kind of backstories they are given to them, and so on. I created a specific intro for such videos too. The name and idea was inspired by the book House of the Psychotic Woman and the trope of the unhinged woman that exists in the book community. Now, I also started doing mini docs on real women who work I admire, actresses, musicians, directors, photographers, etc. Mind you, I usually choose women who are, again, not very traditional. They go against the grain, they aren't afraid to be themselves, speak their mind, make mistakes, and be wrong. I decided to keep this a title and an intro because of me being unhinged, meaning being raw and real. And usually such women, or their work, are labeled in society and media as crazy, insane, or abnormal, so I decided to twist it. At the moment, A Woman Unhinged kind of became a second name for this channel. That's why I included it in the title. Maybe I will change things in the future and create a specific name and intro for doc videos, maybe not. If you don't agree with me and don't like this name, if it triggers something in you, it's okay. You can leave and forget that my channel exists. No, I don't think I'm glamorizing mental illness or preparation of any kind of stereotypes. I'm not diagnosing anyone, and I'm not using the names of real mental illnesses to describe people, cue bipolar. I don't title my videos, person name is unhinged. It's ridiculous. For people who do get it, thank you for watching, commenting, suggesting, and sharing your opinions and experiences about this very heavy and serious topic I touch on. I realized so many of my favorite female characters, they somewhat fall into the unhinged woman trope because I can understand them somewhat. But we're not gonna talk about that, okay? You wanna know, go read my book, You're Not Crucial. It goes on sale on the 13th. Gonna be on my website, harriyannahook.com. I am going to sit here and talk about a few cartoon women and one live action that ended up, live action adaptation, who have done pretty questionable things and bring some reasoning as to why they respond the way they do. I am not defending, but seeing why their pain has led them to the way that they are. First, we are going to begin with the waifu, Nicole Watterson. Nicole is literally the person in this series that has somewhat sense other than Larry, the guy that literally works every job within the series. Her and Larry literally the only ones with some kind of brain cells in this series. And because of that, it has led to her being extremely mean and violent from time to time. And her family overall treats her like ass. But let's just start with her parents. So her parents have put so much pressure on her from a very young age for her to be perfect. And because of that, she felt like she was never good enough for them. Because if she did great, her mother and dad would be like, that's not good enough. You should do better than that. And she felt like her best was never good enough for them when she was actually pretty great at a lot of what she does. She felt like she was never good enough for her mom and her dad, no matter how much she tried. This has led to Nicole not really liking the girl and the woman that she was constantly trying to please her parents. And this could be a bit of a throwaway to how she ended up with Richard in the first place. Richard pisses me off. I just had to get that out because Richard is everything that her parents hated. He is not the kind of man that they wanted their daughter to be with. Her husband treats her like shit. And we're gonna get back to Richard, but let's talk a little bit about getting some reasoning why Nicole got with him in the first place, because Nicole got with him in the first place because of how different he was to her. When they met, he was extremely kind and he made her laugh. Like, it was a very cute moment. But Richard was so different from Nicole, as he didn't really have all these extracurricular activities going on with him, and he wasn't necessarily the smartest. But he truly did like her past her need to try to be perfect. He simply just liked Nicole for her flaws and all. It's so sad because Richard liked Nicole for who she was, and down the line we see that he ends up taking advantage of her falling for him, and he starts to treat her no better than how her parents treat her. The thing with Richard is because, like I said, he ended up becoming just as bad as Nicole's parents as they were to her. He even allowed his own mom to treat Nicole like shit. His mother is extremely disrespectful towards her, and this has led to Nicole's children treating her like shit just as well. They have picked up on this behavior from not just their dad, but their grandmother, as they both treat Nicole horribly. They think it's okay to do this because they are basically just copying the behaviors of the adults in their lives. And Nicole does love these people. She even loves Richard's mother, Granny Jojo, to a certain extent too, as much as she disagrees with her. And she does whatever she can to not be nasty towards them. As we see her get angry, she gets loud, she screams, like she breaks things, she even hits people before. Like, we see that Nicole has developed so much anger issues over the years because she's just full of so much rage, with everyone in her life being so overbearing on her. And because she has so much rage, it built up within her because people in her life treat her so horribly, and her husband is a very big factor into why that is. Do I think that Nicole would be much happier and more calm if she were no longer with Richard? Yes. But she has kids with that man, and that is part of the reason why it is so hard for her to let go. As Nicole does have her family, they're pretty much awful to them. No matter how much good she does for them, they're never going to give her that respect that she so desperately wants to gain. Next woman I want to talk about is Miss Shego from Kim Possible. Yes, Shego is grown. Look it up. Literally, Ron called her grown in the show, y'all. Shego is an adult. Now, Shego is another woman who was failed by her family, and it led her into a very destructive person, I'd say. Shego, baby. As her family, which is full of males, they forced her into being a superhero, and she had gotten powers unexpectedly. And her not being able to make that decision herself did lead her into rebelling because she was constantly being told of what to do. She got one thing about her is that she is Miss Bossy, played Bossy by Khalees. Y'all see why she's with Draken now? You see why she works for him? Part of why she works for Draken is because she knows she can overpower him, as he really is the only person who took her in that she can get away with not being bossed around with. Like, Shego knows that she's smarter than Draken. She knows that she is smarter than Draken, and she knows that she is sneakier than him just as well. Shego being in control for so much of her life, especially during the most important stages of her life, adolescence, it led her into being very destructive, and to the point where she just doesn't really care about anything. She low-key doesn't even really care about herself all that much because she has no problem with fucking up her criminal record. As she does care for Draken, we see that she has shown affection towards him in this series, but she is always first priority in her mind. She doesn't really take other people's feelings into consideration because for the longest, that's what she was forced to do. She was always forced into putting others before herself, and it led her into becoming such a cold-hearted bitch, and she just became extremely bitter as time continued to pass. Shego has dragon, but that's not very much. Now moving on to Miss Miraculous Ladybug. There are two women from this series that I would like to talk about, and that being Nathalie and Tomoe, and we're going to talk about Nathalie first. Now, the problem with Miraculous Ladybug, y'all already know, we don't know anyone in the show because the show doesn't want to give us any fucking backstory. But some things that we can pick up about Nathalie, we can get a sense of why she acts the way she does and makes horrible decisions. Like I said, overall, this show really needs to do better about going into backstories because we don't fucking know anybody, and everything that we're pulling from is just clues. Context clues. But somewhat from what we picked up about Nathalie, we can see the way she acts and why she makes these horrible decisions. In a sense, Nathalie is a bit trapped by Gabriel, who is her boss within the series. And as she not only works for him, she's friends with him, she knows his darkest secrets, and she lives with him. It's bad out here for my sis. That last point that I made makes everything so much more understandable about why she does the shit she does. As Nathalie has got herself caught up in a situation that she really can't get out of because the damage is done, and from the looks of it, she don't really have nobody else to turn to, as Gabriel is all that she has. And when you come to that realization, it makes sense why she does the things she does for him, which can give people this illusion that she's mean when she really isn't. Like, I'm sorry y'all, I don't know who need to hear this, but Nathalie is not necessarily mean as people say she is. She's assertive, she's straightforward, she's not overly bubbly, but that doesn't necessarily mean that she's mean. But the worst of Nathalie does come out when she has to do with Gabriel and all his antics, as so much of what she has done has been for the sake of wanting better for him, as he has become her whole life and she doesn't really have much outside of him, as he provides her housing and he also signs her paychecks. It's so sad when you come to the realization that she really don't have anyone outside of Gabriel, because this is all that the show is giving us. And then when we found out that she lived with him, that was just kind of like the icing on the cake, and we were just like, so much more about her makes sense. And it's so sad that she doesn't really have anyone outside of him, because that man is just straight up awful. He's a fucking bitch. And I do ship Gabe that. Everyone knows that about me. But I truly do wish that Gabriel would treat her better. Like, you legit have this woman. One thing about men, they love to have control, but they think because they have control and that power that they can treat women any kind of way. One thing about him is that you legit have this woman who has nobody but you, and you treat her like ass. Gabriel, baby, Lord have mercy. Now, switching over from Nathalie, we're gonna get into Tomoe. I don't really see anybody on YouTube talk about Tomoe for the most part, so I may be the first one that actually goes a little bit in depth into her character, aside from talking about her relationship with her daughter and how she treats her daughter horribly, which we will get into. But let's just talk about Tomoe a little bit as a person, because Tomoe is very similar to Nathalie in the sense of, you know, Gabriel being there. But Tomoe has more control over her own life because she doesn't live with him like Nathalie does. And like Nathalie, with Tomoe, we don't really know much about her. Like, yes, we can infer and draw context clues from the things that we have learned in history that Tomoe's a famous fencer, but we know that athletes be going through hell, especially during that training period, when they're becoming to that big stage, and then when they get in that big stage and all those hardships that come along with that. Being involved with sports is not easy. I'm speaking from personal experience. And we can get a sense of this generational trauma with Tomoe as we learn she's a famous fencer, and oftentimes people who are famous with sports, they are brutalized within their training space, and I can attest to this. I went through so much of that when I was involved with cheerleading and dance, and it took a very big toll on my mental health and how I treated people around me. Heroes modeling bad behavior. Increased media attention on pro athletes has revealed shocking displays of violence both on them and the off-sport field. This is an influence on young fans who admire and glamorize such athletes. One researcher, Smith, 1986, asked adolescent hockey players who their favorite National Hockey League NHL player was. He found that there was a positive correlation between skaters and those NHL hero who was aggressive to the young athlete's own play. Aggressive parents. But aggressive behavior isn't only on TV. Oftentimes, it's closer to home. Certain parents can be violent and aggressive with their children at home, as well as the sport field. One Minnesota survey found that 7% of adolescent athletes said that an adult has hit, kicked, and slapped them while practicing in sports. Experiencing such violent behavior has a mimic effect, says researchers. See the case of Thomas, Juanita, and Michael Costin in 2000 and what happened to their kids thereafter. People are very, very much mean in environments that revolve around sports, and then I would say modeling just as well. People can get nasty, as there's so much name calling and screaming and shouting and sometimes fighting. I've had a shoe thrown at me at cheerleading before. It was bad. Sports environments can often be very much toxic and can have long-lasting effects on people. So much of how Tomoe treats her daughter could be how she was treated when she was her own age. And we see that Tomoe is terrible to her daughter. She's actually, oh God. And then it's interesting because we see that she has a Gabriel. And Gabriel seems to only care for Tomoe when it comes to his advantage. And also, I just would like to make a note of this. I'm just sick of the media, especially Miraculous Ladybug, villainizing people with disabilities. This show has shown a repeated cycle of this. And I think it has done the worst with Tomoe's character, as we do have this character here that is blind. Why is the only blind character in the series the villain? And it's not even just her. We've seen other characters in the past that have disabilities and they're villainized too. This show is disappointing. And last but not least, the last woman we are going to be talking about is Miss Maleficent. Let's not talk about her daughter, because we can infer when it comes to descendants, Maleficent's horrible life contributed to why she was so terrible to her daughter. But let's actually sit here and talk about Maleficent. Sleeping Beauty is one of my favorite movies of all time because of, you guessed it, the villain. And for the longest, we really didn't know much of anything about Maleficent. Let's say probably 70 years later, we finally got some, substance with her character. But let's talk back to the movie. From the movie, we got a sense that she was extremely salty about not getting invited to that party. And then as the movie goes on, we see that she really doesn't have much of anything or anyone other than that bird and that lonely big ass castle that she lives in. And because of that, she doesn't care how she treats people and begins to act very much reckless. Now, in the live action Maleficent movie, I don't care what nobody says. I love that movie. No one will ever make me hate the live action Maleficent. We do get some sense of her and who she was before she turned evil. We got a backstory. As Maleficent, for the most part, she was fairly nice and she was very protective of her people and would do anything to protect them. And this is what led to her, that's why the king wanted her ass dead. He was like, no, you gonna protect these people? No. He wanted revenge. And we see that so much of her horrible actions resulted in the fact that the people in her life before the incident when she showed up uninvited to the party and that led to her causing so much chaos, we saw that she was pretty much nice and caring for the most part. She wasn't necessarily mean in my opinion, but she, those people that she was in charge of, the Moors, they were seen as bad. but she slowly starts to decline as time passes because more and more people are just pushing her buttons, and she just snapped when she realized that she was SA'd. In that moment, she was fed up and she thought that man loved her, but he didn't. He just took advantage of her for his personal gain. And her way of getting revenge was to hurt those in his life as much as he hurt her. Now, I want to read you guys this quick excerpt that I found from this amazing article talking about why Maleficent was so angry and how this effect really hurt her and hindered so much of her life and her interactions with people and everything like that. Because people didn't quite seem to understand why she had it out for Aurora so bad, but when you get to the realization that that child contributed to the reason why so many people treated her horribly, it makes sense. Even though Aurora did nothing wrong, we can understand why she felt so cold towards her. But isn't it important to watch her pain, to see her suffer and how it manifests into the darkness she shrouds around her kingdom and her own body? She doesn't cower, but instead chooses rage. Maleficent is not ashamed. She is ready to inflict pain. Real-life survivors have many ways of coping with SA, but there is something deeply gratifying seeing a movie star larger than life on the screen don a descendant black cape to confront the man who stripped her of the piece of herself and simply fucking his shit up. It's commonly brought in feminist discourse that women are socialized to monotone personalities to appear pleasant or nice and certainly undemanding. When Maleficent walks into her own anger, it's powerful to behold. When Maleficent barges into the infant's christening and curses her earthly sleep until the prick of her finger, she has no intention of true love's kiss to return to the girl's conscience. She doesn't believe in true love now and that the illusion has hurt her. Yet she remains drawn to the child, even after 3 squabbling pixies went Aurora away from the woods of her own safety. Maleficent is fueled by her hatred, calling her beastie. She is fearful of her, disgusted by her. But even against her own gratifying judgment, she slowly begins to protect the child as she watches her from afar and using her magic to keep the curious girl from harm. The audience begins to understand that this is just not a story about revenge, but also the complicated mother-child relationship that can arise from violence. Having bad people in your life is equivalent to having no one, because these people aren't doing anything beneficial for you. And it's sad that so often when it comes to the trope of a woman not really having many people she can turn to when she's in need of help, she only has a man who treats her like ass, or her issues are usually tracked back to a man who treats her horribly. And this is like the sad reality that we live in. I know oftentimes that we really don't like to see these kinds of dynamics in the media that we consume, as a lot of people will be like, why would you put something like this in art? Yuck, ew. And as we use art as a way to escape reality, but expecting art not to include things that are mirrored in the real world is also not okay, because it leaves no room for nuance and it leaves no room for discussion. I hate to say it, I hope I don't sound ridiculous, but the world that we live in has a lot of disturbing shit within it. So while I know that so many TV shows and movies and books can take that and go too far with it, it's kind of gross and kind of distasteful and kind of ignorant to act like these things do not exist, because oftentimes when creators do put things like this in there, they try to be as respectful as possible in showing the audience that this is indeed wrong. But oftentimes they fail with that shit, and that's why people are just like, if you're not going to do it right, don't put it in there at all. See, we can have both arguments. You can look at it both ways. Was it anti-black that Disney made Princess Tiana a frog for most of her movie? Yes. But were they wrong for including that scene where those white people were being racist towards her? You know, the scene where they didn't want to get her the building when she had enough money to get it? No. No, they were not wrong, because the way they handled that in the movie let the audience know that it was wrong. Y'all know I can get on here and drag Dan Snyder Productions all day, every day. Yes. It was a problem with him belittling black girls and women in his shows for the sake of jokes. That's wrong. Yes, there's a bunch of misogyny in the media that we consume. And yes, it's a problem. But we can also still look into these things and see if that there's meaning to it. Like, yes, we can talk about Alia being a good friend to Marinette, but we can also talk about how Alia falls into the category of the tired trope that is the token black kid. And she also is a bit of a mammy to a certain extent. There are people in real life that are tokens in their schools and their workplaces. I have been in a situation before where I was the token black person at work. Tokenism is real. The world is a very, very dark place, and many people are not happy. So many people, women especially, don't even have friends or family, and the only person that so many of them can turn to is a horrible man. Or a man that they did so dirty and they end up just turning on everyone and becoming a terrible person and doing terrible things. Yes, I do believe that women can be just as bad as men. I love Gone Girl. That's why I should check out that movie. But a lot of women are lonely, and they feel that in order for them not to be lonely, they put up with a terrible man or do things to harm people in that man's life, like Maleficent. Maleficent's character makes me so sad because one, not only is she rooted in anti-Semitism, but two, that man ruined her and she resorted to hurting people in his life who did nothing to her to get back at him. He hurt her so much to the point where she became just as bad, if not worse, than he was. Women being pushed around by men and other women, and a lot of times these other women have internalized misogyny within them, lead them to making really bad decisions and questionable life choices and changes, and having so much anger and rage built up inside them that they have no idea how to deal with it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I really did enjoy making this one. Oh god, I was crying, y'all, when I put this together. I was like bawling my eyes out. Anytime I talk about the live action Maleficent movie, I'll just be crying and crying and crying and crying. But yes, as I did mention my book, I had 2 books coming out on the 13th. It's a novella, You're Not Crucial. It's a collection of essays written by me about misogyny, race, and everything that I've learned about adulthood while working as an extra in the American film industry. And I really hope you guys enjoy it. The link will be down below to my website. So on the 13th, you can go ahead and get your copy. Yes, you can use the discount code HOTSPOT30 for 30% off. harriyannahook.com. I have Patreon if you guys want to support me that way. Also have Buy Me a Coffee, and also have Ko-fi for other ways to support me just as well. I have a web series called The Progenies. You can stream it for free on YouTube. Please support us. And also we have a GoFundMe going on for donations. Please consider giving us a donation if you appreciate the show. We would love to get back to filming. And last but not least, just follow me on everything at Harriyanna, HARRIYANNA. Thank you guys so much for watching, and have a good night.
Powerpuff Girls will just blow your mind. Buttercup like villains 3 at a time. Bubbles will smile while kicking your butt, and Blossom will lead them out of their rut. Cherish and Powerpuff, 2 of a kind. Both wanna save the world before bedtime. From Townsville, Memphis, New York to LA, the Powerpuff Girls are just here to stay. They come in